This was their long-awaited reunion, and it was also the happiest moment in Forrest's life, because he could be with Jenny again. But Forrest would never know that Jenny had always been doing some unusual things, and Forrest himself was not considered normal. He was mentally challenged. Although his IQ was only 75, he still lived a very different life. When he was a child, he taught his neighbor how to dance. And after learning it, the neighbor went on TV and became famous overnight. In school, he was chased by bullies, but he ran all the way onto the football field, and because of his speed, a coach noticed him, directly recruited him into college, and eventually he joined the national star team and was even received personally by the president. After graduating from college, he chose to enlist and ended up breaking one military record after another. Later, he went to fight in the Vietnam War, where he bravely saved the lives of his entire unit and became a national hero. Just thinking table tennis was fun, he became part of Sino-American ping-pong diplomacy. While running, he casually said, "Shit happen," and that phrase became the origin of bumper sticker culture. One day he wiped his sweat on a t-shirt and accidentally started a trend that turned into the t-shirt culture. He invested in what he thought was just an ordinary fruit company, and later realized that company was called Apple. And yet, this man who seemed blessed with miracles had a childhood full of struggles. Because of congenital spine problems, Forrest had to rely on leg braces to walk from an early age, which made moving around very difficult and often caused him to get stuck in drains. Whenever that happened, passers-by would always cast strange looks at him. To keep Forrest from feeling inferior, his mother would tell him over and over again,
"You're the same as everybody else. You are no different."
However, when the time came to start school, Forrest faced a major obstacle. His IQ test showed only 75, while the government's minimum requirement for admission was 80, so he was told he could only attend a special school. But his mother knew that education was too important for Forrest. He couldn't fall behind his peers in learning, too. She believed there must be another way to get him educated. For Forrest's future, his mother resolutely decided to give everything she had.
Is that Mr. Gump? Mrs. Gump?
He's on vacation.
Meanwhile, Forrest sat quietly outside the door, not knowing what was happening inside. At night, as usual, his mother told him stories, but Forrest suddenly asked her questions.
Mama, what's vacation mean?
Vacation?
Where Daddy went.
Vacation's when you go somewhere and you don't ever come back.
Soon the first day of school arrived, and his mother reminded him to study well and told him the school bus would come every day to pick him up. This was Forrest's first time riding a school bus, but before stepping on, he hesitated at the strange bus door.
Mama said not to be taking rides from strangers.
This is the bus to school.
I'm Forrest Gump.
I'm Dorothy Harris.
Well, now we ain't strangers anymore.
Because Forrest wore leg braces, he stood out among the other children, and no one was willing to sit with him. And that was when the gears of fate began to turn.
You can sit here if you want.
A girl named Jenny entered Forrest's world. Although Jenny suffered abuse from her father every day, her heart still shone like gold, and she never judged Forrest for being different.
Are you stupid or something? Mama says stupid as stupid does. I'm Jenny. I'm Forrest Gump.
In this way, Forrest gained his first friend in life, and also the light that illuminated his path forward. From then on, Forrest's life seemed to start glowing. One day, a young guitarist visited Forrest's house and was amazed to find Forrest had a natural gift for rhythm, even creating his own unique dance moves that were impossible to copy. To everyone's surprise, that young man quickly took Forrest's dance to fame, and later people called him Elvis. As days went by, Forrest loved to spend time with Jenny. Jenny taught him how to climb trees, how to read, but most of the time they just sat side by side, waiting quietly for the night to fall, counting the stars in the sky. But soon, Jenny realized Forrest really was a bit slow. When someone threw stones at him, he did not even try to dodge, and ended up falling to the ground. Seeing this, the other kids became even more reckless, until Jenny urged him to run, and only then did Forrest slowly start moving. But because of the braces on his legs, he could not run freely, and the bullies were about to catch him when that ray of light appeared again.
Forrest!
Encouraged by Jenny, Forrest felt a sudden surge of power. He suddenly dashed forward and in that moment broke free from the restraints. At that moment, Forrest was like a wild horse freed from reins, running with abandon, quickly leaving those bullies far behind. From that day on, Forrest developed a deep love for running. No matter where he went, he chose to run. He longed to prove to the world that he was no different from anyone else, but others mocked him, saying he was just a fool who could only run. One day, as Forrest went to see Jenny as usual, Jenny hurriedly pulled him into a dense cornfield to hide. Jenny grew up in a single-parent household, but in Forrest's eyes, Jenny's father seemed to love her very much because he was always kissing and touching her. But the truth was very different. Jenny's father was an unemployed drunk who poured all his frustrations onto his daughter. In the wide cornfield, Jenny knelt on the ground and prayed sincerely.
Dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far, far, far away from here. Dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far.
That day she did not fly away like a bird, but luckily the police came in time, and Jenny finally escaped living with her father. She moved to her grandmother's place, and although the old trailer was shabby, Jenny was comforted by the fact that it was very close to Forrest's house. Every night, Jenny would quietly sneak to the second floor, spending the night with Forrest. Jenny told him that her heart was full of fear. Forrest did not understand where that fear came from, but he only knew Jenny was his friend, and he wanted to protect her. And so, they entered middle school life together. The kids who once bullied Forrest had by then become street punks. To chase Forrest, who ran like the wind, they even bought an old car. Jenny, just like when they were little, shouted at Forrest to run, but this time he could not outrun them, so he turned and dashed into a narrow alley, and by accident stumbled right into the school's football field. But Forrest did not stop there. Instead, he ran even faster across the field, easily surpassing all the players. This scene happened to catch the eyes of the coaches. Not long after, this sharp-eyed coach, ignoring the opposition of others, recruited Forrest, a young man who seemed dull yet was gifted with extraordinary talent, into the team. And because of that, Forrest was given the chance to study in college. He may not have understood the rules of the game, but he never forgot Jenny's simple words. Whenever he heard those words, Forrest was like a lion breaking free, running across the field with all his might. Even when opponents swarmed toward him, he could always break through with incredible speed. But Forrest did not know how to slow down, often crashing into the marching band at the end of the game.
He must be the stupidest son of a bitch alive, but he sure is fast.
Later, in order to stop him in time, the coach would hang a banner at the end of the field to remind Forrest to stop. During his college days, Forrest's life was colorful, but his only regret was not being able to study in the same school as Jenny, because Jenny attended a women's college. But whenever Forrest had time, he would go visit her. That day, a gentle rain fell from the sky, and Forrest sat downstairs at Jenny's dorm waiting for her. But the next second, he saw Jenny being intimate with her boyfriend inside a car. Watching someone touch Jenny like that, the fire of anger in Forrest's heart was instantly ignited. He stormed over to the car in a fury and without a word began punching and kicking the man, and only after Jenny desperately tried to stop him did Forrest finally let go. Jenny hurried to explain to her boyfriend, but he refused to listen at all. At that moment, Forrest stood there like an innocent child, his heart filled with confusion. Wondering why Jenny reacted so strongly when he was only trying to protect her. Faced with Jenny's scolding, Forrest simply said his piece.
Brought you some chocolate.
Jenny felt helpless because Forrest's heart was like a blank sheet of paper, and all he wanted was to protect her. She then led Forrest into her dorm and gave him dry clothes to wear. It felt as if they had returned to those nights of childhood spent together. Only now time had quietly carved marks of growth into both of them. Jenny asked Forrest a deep question for the first time. She asked if he had ever thought about what kind of person he would be many years later in this world. Forrest was puzzled, and he asked in return if years later he would no longer be himself. Jenny did not know how to answer, so she softly revealed her own heart. She dreamed of standing on a brightly lit stage, holding a guitar and singing softly, becoming the most dazzling star. After speaking, Jenny gazed deeply at Forrest, trying to lead him into the subtle world of emotions between men and women. But Forrest was still the pure Forrest, and he did not understand at all. During his college days, Forrest focused almost entirely on the football field, With his outstanding performance, he not only became part of the All-American team, but was also personally received by the president. Yet, in the face of this supreme honor, Forrest cherished most the free sodas that were provided, thinking they were both tasty and refreshing. So he went on to drink 15 bottles in a row, and while his stomach was satisfied, his bladder began to protest. When he shook hands with the president, he blurted out that he wanted to go pee. Thanks to his achievements on the field, Forrest successfully completed his college studies and received his degree. Thinking life would be easier after graduation, he was approached by a military officer right after the ceremony, holding a recruitment brochure. And so Forrest, just stepping out of college, rushed into military life. But history repeated itself, and when he boarded the bus, no one was willing to sit with him. It was then that Forrest met the second friend of his life. The man was named Bubba, who had grown up by the bay where his family had caught shrimp for generations. Though humble in background, he carried a grand dream in his heart, to own a shrimp boat of his own. At the same time, Forrest was about to begin another legendary chapter of his life.
Go! What's your sole purpose in this army?
To do whatever you tell me, Drill Sergeant?
God damn it, Gump! You're a goddamn genius. That's the most outstanding answer I've ever heard. You must have a goddamn IQ of 160. You are goddamn gifted, Private Gump.
To Forrest, military life was simple and straightforward. There was no need for complicated thinking, only obedience and execution. When the drill sergeant ordered him to assemble a rifle, he worked tirelessly and broke company records again and again. When the sergeant told him to polish his shoes, he made them shine like new. Bubba also often shared with him every detail about shrimping, from the secrets of tracking them to the techniques of catching them, and even the art of cooking. But whenever night fell, Forrest could not help but think of Jenny. The time they had spent together felt like a beautiful illusion, precious, but out of reach. Just as he sank deeper into memories, his roommate quietly handed him an adult magazine, and on the first page was Jenny's photo. It turned out she had already been expelled from school and in her hardship had to take a special role in a theater. Whenever Forrest had the chance, he would go to watch her perform. Looking at Jenny fully immersed on stage, Forrest felt comforted, thinking perhaps this was Jenny's dream. But the next second, he witnessed something unbearable, as a customer behaved rudely toward Jenny. Without hesitation, Forrest rushed forward, punishing the man in the name of justice, then carried Jenny off the stage. The result was predictable. Jenny was dismissed from the theater that very night. Jenny felt resentment, blaming Forrest for being like a shadow that followed her everywhere. In her eyes, Forrest was like a child who knew nothing of the meaning of love. Jenny did not want to be the burden holding Forrest back, so she flagged down a random car and prepared to leave. Forrest looked at Jenny's determined back with reluctance but could only say goodbye in silence.
They sending me to Vietnam. It's this whole other country.
Only then did Jenny suddenly realize that Forrest had come just to say farewell to her. Before leaving, she softly reminded Forrest not to play the hero on the battlefield, and if there was danger, just run. Forrest carved Jenny's words deeply into his heart, and it was this simple reminder that allowed him to write another legendary chapter in Vietnam. Soon after, Forrest and Bubba stepped onto the battlefield together. There they met Lieutenant Dan.
Morning, sir!
Oh, get your hands down. Do not salute me. There are goddamn snipers all around this area who'd love to grease an officer.
Lieutenant Dan was valiant and charismatic, humorous and spirited, and even carried the blood of generations of soldiers. All the men in his family had fallen in battle, and this honor made him the pride and admiration of many. Lieutenant Dan also dreamed of following his ancestors, sacrificing himself bravely on the battlefield and becoming a legend. But when Forrest arrived at the battlefield, he found it completely different from what he had imagined. There were no heroic scenes filled with smoke, only endless rain. The rain poured for 4 whole months. Even when they slept, they were surrounded by water. Bubba had an important question for Forrest. He asked if Forrest would like to catch shrimp with him, and Forrest gladly agreed. Bubba was overjoyed, for he already had a plan, that after the war ended, they would take out a loan and buy a shrimp boat, live on the boat, catch shrimp for a living, save rent, split the earnings evenly, and enjoy shrimp whenever they wanted. Forrest praised Bubba's wisdom, believing he was the smartest man in the world. At the same time, Forrest turned this beautiful vision into letters, sending them to Jenny far away, one every day, without fail. Even though Jenny never replied, Forrest always longed for the war to end soon, so he could set sail with Bubba on that dream of shrimping. Finally, the long-lost sunlight pierced through the heavy clouds and shone upon the earth. Yet this peaceful beauty vanished in an instant. Forrest's unit was suddenly ambushed. Watching his comrades fall one after another, Lieutenant Dan decisively gave the order to retreat. Yet retreat felt so unfamiliar to Forrest until Bubba shouted, "Run!" Only then did he suddenly realize, instantly turning into a flash of lightning as he dashed away, running so fast that even bullets could hardly reach him. Just as Jenny had said, when danger came, all he needed to do was run. Very soon, Forrest had left all his comrades far behind. When he turned back, he realized there was no one behind him. Bubba was his best friend, and he had to make sure Bubba was safe, so he went back into the battlefield to search. Along the way, he found many wounded comrades, and even though they had mocked him before, Forrest felt only pity, and would not let them lie there alone in despair. One by one, he carried them to safety. On his way back, Forrest fell to the ground, but by accident discovered Lieutenant Dan, whose legs had been taken by the cruel fire of war. Forrest tried to carry Lieutenant Dan away, but was met with refusal. Lieutenant Dan called headquarters for an airstrike, intending to fall with honor in the battlefield. But Forrest was determined. He carried Lieutenant Dan on his back and ran toward hope. While running, Forrest felt something bite him, but he did not care. He only wanted to get Lieutenant Dan to safety and then continue searching for Bubba. At that moment, Lieutenant Dan grabbed Forrest. To Forrest, Bubba's safety was far more important than any order. Finally, in a dense thicket, he found Bubba wounded. He whispered softly to comfort Bubba while carrying him through the woods with agility, dodging the enemy's bombardment. Fortunately, they escaped the fire of artillery, but fate played a cruel trick on Bubba. He did not survive. In his last moment, Bubba said something to Forrest that he would remember for a lifetime.
I want to go home.
Bubba was my best good friend. And even I know that ain't something you can find just around the corner.
At that moment, Forrest finally felt the cruelty of war, for it had taken his best friend. Later, Forrest was taken to a field hospital where he learned that the thing that bit his buttock was called a bullet. Everyone said that wound was worth a fortune, but Forrest never saw a single cent. Yet he treasured this gift, because it meant he could enjoy endless ice cream for the rest of his life. But Lieutenant Dan was always shrouded in a faint sadness, as if the war had gripped his soul tightly. The war had taken his legs, and also planted seeds of resentment in his heart. He blamed Forrest for pulling him back from the edge of death, robbing him of the chance to die like his ancestors and win the Medal of Honor.
See that? Do you know what it's like not to be able to use your legs?
Well, yes, sir, I do.
Hearing Forrest's words, Lieutenant Dan felt deeply humiliated. In his eyes, everyone's fate carried a certain weight, either as light as a feather or as heavy as a mountain. As a soldier born into a military family, he believed he should have died in glory on the battlefield, not linger on as a cripple. But Forrest never understood the obsession in Lieutenant Dan's heart. He could not help but wonder, wasn't living the greatest blessing life could give us? Why torment oneself and remain imprisoned in the shadows of the past? During his time recovering in the hospital, Forrest unexpectedly unlocked a new skill, playing ping pong. At first, he just thought it was fun, but over time his skills grew rapidly, until no one could beat him. The next day, Forrest received good news. He would be awarded the Medal of Honor. He was full of joy, eager to share this honor with Lieutenant Dan, because in his heart, Lieutenant Dan would always be his respected commander. But Lieutenant Dan had already quietly left. Forrest's ceremony was broadcast live on television, and because he had saved his entire unit, he became a hero in the hearts of the entire nation. By chance, Forrest stumbled into a large gathering. The crowd was full of fiery passion, but Forrest did not realize this was actually an anti-war protest. As a soldier who had just returned, he was pushed to the front and asked to give a speech. Just then, a familiar voice was heard. Without hesitation, Forrest jumped off the stage, running toward the figure he had longed for day and night. In the clear waters of a lake, they finally reunited after so long. At that moment, all the anti-war speeches faded into insignificance, and only their heartfelt embrace became the most beautiful sight in the world. The people around cheered for Forrest and Jenny's reunion, but Jenny's friends all seemed like bad company. Once again, Forrest stepped forward to protect her, and he also expressed that he wanted to be Jenny's boyfriend. But Jenny did not answer. Instead, she opened her heart and told him about the wandering and searching she had gone through all these years. God had not turned Jenny into a bird, but she lived like one, drifting everywhere, chasing the breath of freedom along the road. Jenny honestly told Forrest that their lives were like two parallel rivers, each flowing to a distant shore. She longed to keep chasing the light of freedom in her heart. Forrest also knew that Jenny always sought freedom and would never anchor herself in any safe harbor. So at the moment of parting, he gave Jenny his Medal of Honor, saying he only received it because he did what she taught him. Just keep running.
Why are you so good to me?
You're my girl.
I'll always be your girl.
They embraced deeply, and their bond went beyond friendship and love, becoming an indescribable connection and attachment. Because Forrest was so good at ping pong, and also a symbol of American pride, he became a bridge of diplomacy between China and the United States, once again shining on television. One day, as Forrest was heading out, he unexpectedly saw Lieutenant Dan again. At this moment, Dan looked especially haggard and downcast, his life barely sustained by the meager aid from the government. What was most thought-provoking was that everything Forrest now had was exactly what Dan had once longed for, but could never reach. Soon the two stepped into a bar, and Forrest confided to Dan that he had once promised Bubba to fulfill his dream of catching shrimp. Hearing this, Dan gave a slight smile and said that if Forrest truly became a captain, he would willingly serve as his first mate. As the countdown ticked away, the Christmas bells rang gently and colorful streamers fell like rain, adding a touch of festivity to the bar. Everyone's face was filled with cheerful smiles except Dan's, whose lips drooped slightly, lost in his own thoughts. That night, Dan brought two ladies back home, but Forrest showed little interest in this. One of the ladies called Forrest a fool, and upon hearing that Dan flew into a rage, he cursed and drove the women out, but accidentally fell down. Forrest hurried to help, but Dan pushed him away, stubbornly trying to climb back to his wheelchair on his own. Dan knew that Forrest was extremely sensitive to the word fool, just as he himself now feared being seen as a monster. Dan also understood that Forrest was not as foolish as he appeared. He had goals and direction, and he never stopped moving forward. While most people lived their lives like the Walking Dead, wasting time, including himself. At that moment, Dan felt a surge of shame inside, realizing that true courage and wisdom often lay hidden deep in the seemingly ordinary yet unyielding souls. Not long after, Forrest received his discharge orders along with a check for $25,000, a special sponsorship from a ping pong equipment company. Forrest brought the money to Bubba's hometown, where he not only met Bubba's family but also visited Bubba's grave. Forrest knew that his promise to Bubba was far heavier than any flowery words, so he resolutely invested everything to purchase a shrimp boat, vowing to fulfill the dream they once wove together. But the road of shrimping was full of ups and downs, and as a beginner, Forrest faced setbacks again and again. Every trip to sea ended with nothing. At this time, an old man watching kindly reminded him that the boat had not yet been named, and a good name could bring good luck. But in Forrest's heart, there was already one irreplaceable name, and that was Jenny. Meanwhile, Jenny seemed lost in the fog of life, even falling into addiction to forbidden substances. One late night, she stood alone on the balcony railing, staring at the endless traffic below, her heart surging with an endless longing to fly. She dreamed of soaring freely like a bird, escaping all pain and sorrow. But when she tried to take that decisive step, her foot suddenly slipped. The sense of falling rushed over her, and the piercing cold wind instantly woke her up. Jenny backed down. She hated her own downfall, and hated even more the indifference and cruelty of the era. If only she had chosen to stay by Forrest's side, would everything have been different? That day, Forrest was as usual driving the Jenny boat at sea. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared, and when he leaned closer, he saw it was Dan. Forrest's excitement surged like a tide, and without hesitation, he leapt into the sea, swimming hard toward the dock. Dan's arrival was only to fulfill the promise buried deep in his heart.
You were ever a shrimp boat captain, that I'd be your first mate. Well, here I am. I am a man of my word.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't you be thinking that I'm gonna be calling you sir.
No, sir. It's my boat.
With Dan's companionship, Forrest's journey was no longer lonely. They sailed side by side across the vast sea, like twin stars shining in the night sky, searching together for traces of shrimp. But that night, a sudden storm swept across the sea. Forrest's heart was filled with fear, but Dan laughed wildly in the wind and rain like a phoenix reborn, as if dancing with fate. In that moment, he seemed able to command the storm, to be the master of destiny. When the storm passed and the dawn broke, the bay was a mess. All the shrimp boats had been destroyed, except for the Jenny boat, standing tall. Because there were no more competitors, in the days that followed, they made a fortune. With the money they earned, they bought 12 more boats, each named Jenny, and founded the Gump Shrimp Company. Life began to get better and better. During this journey, Dan also found the true meaning of life. Looking at the man before him who had once given him new life, Dan felt guilt. After speaking, Dan moved to the side of the boat and suddenly leapt into the water. After losing his legs, Dan had lived in anger, guilt, and self-pity, resenting fate's injustice and his own helplessness. But through his time with Forrest, he gradually began to re-examine his life and values. The moment he jumped into the water, he had already let go of his burdens, reconciled with God, and decided to face the future with courage. Yet fate always seemed to play tricks. On an ordinary evening, a sudden message came to the Jenny boat. Forrest's mother was ill. Without a second thought, he dove into the sea and ran toward home as fast as he could. Returning home, he saw his mother lying weakly on the bed, and an ominous feeling rose in his heart.
What's the matter, Mama?
I'm dying, Forrest.
Come on in, sit down over here.
Forrest did not understand the meaning of death, so he asked his mother,
Why are you dying, Mama?
Something we're all destined to do. Death is just a part of life. But I was destined to be your mama. I did the best I could. I happen to believe you make your own destiny. You have to do the best with what God gave you.
What's my destiny, Mom?
You're gonna have to figure that out for yourself. Life is a box of chocolates, Forrest. You never know what you're gonna get.
A few days later, his mother passed away, and Forrest lost his only family. But this loss did not defeat him. Instead, it ignited his love for life and his determination to pursue it. He devoted himself to the simple yet meaningful little things, like carefully trimming the lawn, letting the green bring vitality to life. At the same time, Dan threw himself into managing the assets of the Gump Shrimp Company, and he told Forrest he would never need to work again, never need to worry about money, because Dan had invested in Apple computers. The two of them had become millionaires. But Forrest was never blinded by wealth. He always kept his mother's teaching in mind, so he generously gave away the extra wealth to charity, and even donated all of his shrimp company shares to Bubba's mother, as a way to honor the deep memory of his departed friend. But whenever night fell and he returned to his lonely room, Forrest always found it hard to sleep, always seeing Jenny coming back to him. Yet all of this was like a mirage, beautiful, but forever out of reach. It seemed that God had heard Forrest's voice, for in the early light of dawn, a familiar figure appeared at Forrest's home.
Hello, Jenny.
Hello, Forrest.
They returned once again to that carefree childhood. They were inseparable, sharing every warm and beautiful moment together. Jenny gave Forrest a brand new pair of running shoes, and they danced gracefully at home, as if all worries and troubles had been carried away by the wind. When another Christmas quietly arrived, Forrest suddenly called out to Jenny.
Will you marry me? I'd make a good husband, Jenny.
You would, Forrest.
But you won't marry me.
You don't want to marry me.
Why don't you love me, Jenny?
Forrest could not understand. He knew what love was, so why did Jenny not know? That night a heavy rain poured down, and Jenny was just as afraid as when she was a child. She decided to give herself one last chance, and she spent that warm night with Forrest. But when the morning came, Jenny was gone again, leaving behind a room spotless and neat, as though she had never been there at all. Forrest sat still by the window, staring at the empty room, his heart feeling hollow, unable to recover for a long time. After that, Forrest put on the pair of running shoes Jenny had given him, as if they had filled him with boundless energy. He longed to run freely. He rushed out of the town, across the county, and before he knew it, he had reached the end of the highway. Without the slightest fatigue, Forrest even ran across the entire state of Alabama. Year after year, Forrest's life was reduced to running, eating, and resting. He tirelessly chased the sunrise on the horizon, as if that was his eternal goal. As time passed, Forrest's running gradually began to attract the world's attention. Faced with flashing cameras and countless questions, he always remained silent. This mystery and persistence quietly established him as a pioneer of performance art in people's minds. And so a massive group of followers quietly gathered behind Forrest, running with him on the road toward freedom. Businessmen also keenly spotted the opportunity, some planning to print Forrest's image on t-shirts as a mark of style and individuality. But just then, a truck drove by and splashed Forrest with mud. He casually picked up one of the merchant's t-shirts to wipe it, and this unintentional act unexpectedly created a new trend in t-shirt culture. Soon, another sticker merchant came seeking inspiration, hoping to hear a catchy slogan from Forrest. Forrest simply said the words, "Shit happens," which unexpectedly became the origin of bumper sticker art. Forrest ran like this for 3 years and 2 months, until one day he finally understood his mother's words. To move forward, one must let go of the past, and so he stopped running. Exhausted in both body and spirit, Forrest had only one thought in his heart, and that was to go home. Not long after, Forrest received a letter from Jenny, and without hesitation he followed the address.
I got your letter.
When they reunited, Jenny seemed infused with new life, and she called Forrest to her because they now had a child together. Hearing this news, Forrest was instantly overwhelmed, stumbling backward in panic. For the role of father came too suddenly for him, and he was completely unprepared. Even more, no one could predict whether the child would inherit his condition. But Jenny reassured him, telling him their child was very smart. Over the years, Jenny had carefully collected every photo of Forrest, recording every one of his stories, finally compiling them into a precious album. Because of this, Forrest Jr. had always known what kind of man his father was. Forrest sat beside his son, and they watched cartoons together with great joy, as if they had known each other for a long time. But unfortunately, Jenny said she was ill. She had contracted an unknown virus, and her life was now in danger. Perhaps it was to give her son a future, or perhaps to keep Forrest from having regrets. But she took the initiative to propose marrying Forrest.
Would you marry me, Forrest?
Okay. They returned to their hometown to hold the wedding, and Dan also came to attend. Now he had found his own partner in life, and he had even made himself a brand new pair of legs. Forrest and Dan exchanged a smile that carried 1,000 unspoken words. After the wedding, Forrest and his family of 3 enjoyed rare warmth and happiness. But the good days did not last long as Jenny's illness worsened. In her final moment, Jenny softly asked Forrest one last question, asking him if he had ever been afraid on the battlefield. Forrest said he did not know, because fear was a natural instinct, a kind of respect for destiny. When he looked up at the sky, seeing the stars shining across the darkness, he just would not feel afraid. When he faced the sea, watching the endless sunlight warm every inch of the cold, he just would not feel afraid. When he crossed the desert, gazing at the rising sun like a beacon of hope, he still would not feel afraid. The more storms one endures, the stronger the heart becomes until one day, fear no longer exists. There was a firm light in Forrest's eyes, while Jenny's eyes revealed endless regret. Regret that she had not stood by his side to experience it all. But Forrest said, "You are my true love."
I love you.
On an ordinary Saturday morning, Jenny quietly passed away. Forrest buried her under their tree, and at the same time tore down the old house left by Jenny's father. That house was like an invisible prison, holding too much of Jenny's pain and memories. Only by letting it vanish into dust could Jenny's soul fly free like a bird. Although Jenny was gone, Forrest did not lose his way. His life became more complete with the responsibility of caring for his child, and warmer with the companionship. Like his mother once did, he sent his son off on the school bus in front of their house.
I want to tell you I love you.
I love you too, Daddy.
I'll be right here when you get back.
You understand this is the bus to the school now, don't you?
Of course, and you were Dorothy yours, and I'm Forrest Gump.
Watching his son get on the bus, Forrest sat quietly in place as promised, waiting for him. The wheel of fate kept turning, and new life would bring new hope. Looking back, Forrest's life was like a feather, light and fragile at birth, carrying a flaw, yet never shackled by destiny. Forrest had once asked his mother about his fate, but now he already had the answer. Because he had seen the most splendid sights of the world, and he had deeply experienced both the beauty and the cruelty of life. On his journey of running, the breeze brushing his cheek was worth as much as the glory of a world champion. In this unknown adventure of life, every moment and every experience was a shining fragment that built the meaning of existence. So was Forrest truly the fool in the eyes of the world? Perhaps the answer has already quietly bloomed in your heart.